Neil Ratner Rock Doc here with my old bud, the Big M.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
we're in for a treat this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about the early days of rock and roll, the early days of Atlantic Records, and some of the unbelievable experiences my buddy M here had. So Mario, why don't you start off by telling everybody what it was like back then when rock and roll was just being introduced. You were at Atlantic Records. Nobody knew what to do with these groups, how to deal with these groups. Take it from there, man.
Well, you know, back in '69, I think it was '68, '69, they started FM radio, and I think it was in San Francisco that Tom Donahue, in Boston had BCN. I forget. And it was just few places had FM stations that were playing rock and roll per se.
We had the place in Montreal.
Yeah, right.
CHOM.
Yeah, right.
Then you had New York, NEWPLJ.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, it was only a few stations. That was FM stations that started playing, you know, long plays, which is like a rock and roll before it was classical. And I was one of the first guys to go out and do promotion for albums back then. And I started with like Led Zeppelin, Brian Auger, and the Trinity, and so on. And I would take the records to the station. Sometime before the records were released, we had test pressings. So we'd take test pressing to the disc jockeys to play before the albums were released in order to get sales or.
And those were like white label.
White labels.
You once told me a very funny story about some white labels. There was an Iron Butterfly white label.
Oh yeah, well, Iron Butterfly had been out before, and they had a track that Vida was really big. That was one of the first records that were getting rock play back then, you know. And before '69, that was stuff was happening. I think in '67, '68, Iron Butterfly. But when I started promoting records in '69, I went to a station way in Gaithersburg, Maryland, somewhere like that. And this guy was in the boondocks, out in the boondocks, and he told me, said, "Man, I think you got a really hit record on that label," because we weren't servicing them at that time. I said, "What is the hit record?" He said, "In a Cotton You Eater," you know. I said, "What?" In a cotton. What's the name? Iron Butterfly. In a Cotton You Eater. I said, "Well, damn." I couldn't correct him. I said, "That's gonna be a smash." It had been out already about 2 years, but at the same time, I put him on a mailing list, and you know, and I started servicing him afterward. But I never corrected him to let him know that the record had been out 2 years already. But
you would take white label of like Led Zeppelin and people like that out as well.
Right. I took the first Led Zeppelin album. I took it to NEW and then had Alison Steele for the first person to play it in America. And I had a test press and I took it over. And she said, "What's the name of the group?" I said, "I think it's the Yardbirds, new Yardbirds." I didn't say Led Zeppelin because Led Zeppelin didn't mean anything at that time. But she played the whole album. You know, I mean, it was incredible. And they, from the first record, they were always getting a lot of play, and everywhere I would go, they would get play. Even in Boston, I remember Al Perry did not want to play Led Zeppelin. I begged him, you know, like, "Hey, man," and he said, "Well, man, it's just some cats playing the blues." I said, "Look, man, I'm from Mississippi. I know what blues is. You know, I was raised in Chicago, Mississippi. This is the blues as far as I'm concerned." So he played it just for me to get out of the station. So I had stuff like that. A lot of places went to get guys to play the record. But once they played it, the record they were a hit right off the bat. Also, like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, the same way.
Now you were very close to Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They were one of the first groups that you dealt with.
Yeah, I remember when Buffalo Springfield I was in the bookkeeping department in Atlantic, and Buffalo Springfield had a big record called
For What It's Worth.
For What It's Worth. Stephen Stills and Neil Young and Richard Furay, Dewey Martin, yeah. And they were cutting a record in Atlantic Studios, so I was making payments because I paid the sessions. And I got to know them, you know, pretty well. And Dewey Martin was a fan of Otis Redding. And Otis Redding was in town at that time. And Otis came to the studio while they were recording, and on that record that they cut, Dewey Martin did one song on that. And he sounded identical like Otis Redding. He did all the stuff, and his whole voice
on a Crosby, Stills, and Nash record.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash record. Dewey Martin sang lead on that, and it sounded like Otis Redding. And that night, you know, the Otis was playing at the Apollo, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash was playing it on Ganos.
So small club in New York,
right on 59th Street.
Right.
And you know, Otis had turned me on more or less to Crosby, Stills and Nash because I was going back to listen to him, and he turned
Otis Redding turned you onto Crosby, Stills and Nash
to listen to them, you know, to listen to not Crosby, Stills and Nash, but the Buffalo Springfield, to listen to them, you know, and also to listen to Bob Dylan because he said, hey man, you know, that was rock and roll, but I wasn't listening that much to that music.
But Otis was that eclectic that he would actually listen to these artists.
Bob Dylan, he was hip to Bob Dylan and Buffalo Springfield. And so anyway, that night I went to the Apollo, and Ahmet was up there, and I ended up riding in a limo with Ahmet to
Ahmet Ertegun, the president of Atlantic Records.
Yeah, I ended up riding back to Undine's with him and Otis Redding to catch Buffalo Springfield, and Otis had a couple of drinks, you know. and they asked him to come up and sit in, and Otis decided, oh yeah, okay, you take another drink, and he get up, he walks up to the stage and just falls flat on his face
in front of everybody at the club.
But he still got up, man, and sang, and it was incredible, man. You know, but you know that was Otis, man.
That was Otis.
But, and he called Ahmet Omelet. You know, he thought it was, he said, yeah, omelet. You know, omelet. You know, he thought his name was Omelet because he liked to eat omelets. But that was the good days of Atlantic Records.
So so you had like Led Zeppelin, you had Crosby, Stills and Nash, and then another group, and I know you were very close with Dwayne Allman.
Oh yeah, Dwayne
the Allman Brothers. Yeah,
Dwayne. I knew Dwayne as a session musician because I was paying sessions, and he was doing a lot of session work for Atlantic and Muscle shows.
Prior to even starting the group or anything.
Prior to the group, and he told me, yeah man, I'm gonna have a band, you know, and so on, you know. But that went on for about a year. He was telling me about it, but I was really tight with him, you know. And then the band was on Capricorn. They did the first album, I think, Idlewild South. And it was incredible, man. And Greg Allman was such a soulful singer. And I loved that record, you know, and I would take that record everywhere I went. I remember I went to England, and I took it, and I turned it on to Keith Richards, you know, and the Jay Giles band, I turned Keith Richards on to them.
So you actually turned their music on
to other people,
because you liked it personally.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't part of your thing for Atlantic.
Right.
You were just into music. You liked these guys, and you said, "Hey, man, you got to check this out. You got to check that out."
And these guys were in the same bass. They were all blues based.
Right.
The Stones were blues based.
Right.
Allman Brothers and Jay Giles were blues based. You know.
Right.
And that was like, and they, man, look, that Sticky Fingers album. You Gotta Move and all that stuff, man. Jagger did stuff on there. It was incredible, man. That whole thing with the Ferry Lewis, You Gotta Move. That was note for note, man. Incredible. It just blew me away. I mean, hey, you gotta give credit. Rock and roll did a lot to integrate as far as music is concerned.
But you knew back in the day as a blues guy that these guys were stealing. These guys were stealing.
They were stealing. But you know, let me tell you, amateurs steal and amateurs copy and professionals steal. But they did well. But you know what? They helped everybody's career.
You told me about a Whole Lot of Lovin'. Hey, what was it called originally?
Killing Floor.
Killing Floor, right.
That's what they were working on, the Killing Floor all the way on that tour.
Right.
And it came out A Whole Lot of Love. You know, but hey, I didn't have nothing to do with that.
But you were on that tour. Is that the tour you did like 30 days?
Yeah, probably. But I think the 36 days or 39 days was like on the second
tour.
But the first tour they were writing the stuff as they on the road, you know. And Killing Floor, Squeeze My Lemon, and Juice Run Down the Lake was all Willie Dixon, you know. But at the same time, you know, when it came out, they had wrote it, you know. But hey, that's just where the mouth flops, you know.
Yeah.
And when it be successful, it gets sued because Chess Records, you know, I guess own the rights to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, they did a lot for blues, for what the stuff they did.
Did the old black artists appreciate what they did?
Oh, damn right. I never get Ferry Lewis. Ferry Lewis was on a tour. I think the Stones had him open a couple of shows. And I went backstage and I said, "Oh man, you know, like Ferry Lewis." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Man," he said, he's doing my tune, you know, that's really nice, you know." Yeah, he said, "But you know, like, hey," I said, "Man, they really doing." He said, "Yeah, they paid me well, but you know, they gonna fuck me though."
So they knew, but they didn't care because they were still making more. Their stuff was getting out there. Much more than anything else.
Plus, let me tell you, the Stones and the Beatles did more for old black artists than anyone else in America.
Right.
Because they brought the attention and they crossover. They helped to cross over. You got to realize you would go to a blues show and be 90% white, you know.
Speaking of old blue, speaking of old black artists, I'm gonna bring up another old black artist that you actually did something for when he was a bit down and out, and that's it's his birthday today, as a matter of fact. Mr. Little Richard, Richard Benjamin, Little Richard. So why don't you tell the story about what happened and how you happened to interact with Little Richard?
Well, see, first of all, Little Richard, I was in Mississippi as a kid, and all that wop babaloo babalop and all that tutti frutti and long tall salad. I grew up idolizing Richard, you know. I mean, in Mississippi, what the heck, you know, what you got to have something to be idolized. You know? So anyway, he was the king for me, you know, and then Elvis Presley and whatever. But Richard was the man for me. And I think I was working with Manticore,
which was ELP's label.
ELP's label, and Stewart and I, we had ELP. And I was in Denver, Colorado, and a guy used to work with me in Atlantic named, I think it was Perry John, PJ. PJ said, man, they're going to go see Little Richard. So boom, I go with him. And we get there, and he introduced me as the head of a record company. And Little Richard right away, yeah, I got a record, man. I got a record. I haven't done no records. I haven't done no records. And
what year was this?
72, 73. No, 74, something like that. 74, I think it was. You know, I lose time, you know. But anyway, we ended up putting the record out, you know. And I met Little Richard that night, and he told me, I got a record, man. You know, he hadn't done a record in quite some time. So he's just coming out of being a preacher. Now he's going back to rock and roll. And it was an incredible record. I'm sure Stewart got it somewhere. But anyway, man, that Mama Jamma turned out to be like the greatest guy, you know, and he kept me laughing. Everything was about Richard. Richard, anywhere you went with Richard walked in and he took over, man. I mean, and I remember he told me, he said, well, look, you know, I'm going to be playing New York, you know. And I'm going to be playing New York, so you're going to, I said, look, man, I'll promote it. You know, we got the record, I'll promote the record, you know, come to the show. I go to the show. Richard had a suit made just for that show. He said, you know, all these people on this bill don't mean nothing. They all coming to see me. You know, anytime I play, they all coming to see me. They don't care about all these other people. All that Bo Diddley and stuff don't mean nothing. It's all about me. You know, I said, okay, man, I know like people like the place is sold out. We play Radio City Music Hall and he's headliner. So he had he just spent maybe $10,000 just to get his uniform made. And man, he had a jacket on that was all mirrors, man. Mirrors about 2 inches by 2 inches square, all over his, and covered, man. Beautiful. Light hit it, boy, and flashes and stuff goes back and back like a ball, you know, like the ball you have spinning around.
Yeah, like a New Year's Eve ball.
And he doing the whole trip, boy, and he did all the songs, that boy, and the people went absolutely crazy. That was the first time I had seen him in like 40 years or 30 years. I don't know how long it was. But man, people went crazy. Women hollering and carrying on and crawling, and women throwing off the bra. The whole trip, man. And Richard said, I told you they only, and that's after the show was over. He come back and said, he took his jacket, he done threw the jacket in the audience, you know. He come back and he said, I told you they all came to see me. But I love him, man. He was like, I loved him till the day.
But as you said, when you were just alone with him.
Oh, he was incredible. Quiet, easy going.
Quiet, nice.
He tell me about makeup and stuff, you know. Mario, you need some makeup, Mario. He said, you know, you put some makeup on you to look younger. But I love him, man. Until I love him. He's just like, out of all the people I met, he was like most influential, man. He just
well, I think he's one of the true pioneers of rock and roll,
boy.
And he's one of the few pioneers that we still got around.
Right.
So we should value him, man.
And Richard,
because he's still here.
Yes, sir, brother.
Go ahead, you
Thank
gonna say?
You, boy. And Richard, you know I love you, brother. Wherever, if you ever see this, you know, call him. Anything I can do.
Getting back though to the early days, and you were talking about Duane Allman. You told me a story about Duane Allman and Eric Clapton that I thought was pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, when Duane was doing sessions, you know, I was telling him about, you know, Clapton had Cream happening. It was really big, and everybody called it Clapton God and stuff. And Duane didn't exactly appreciate that. You know, he said like, "Hey, man, I mean, he can play guitar, but I mean, like, I can play too." I said, "Yeah, man, you know, he just got publicity." But you know, I said, "But these cats are cool, man. You know, they're cool." "Oh man, I don't like all that stuff." And I told him about Hendrix. "I don't like all that wah wah and shit." I said, "But man, look, these cats are cool. They can play the blues and So I said, if you meet him, it's different. So when he met him, it was a completely different thing altogether. So, but Duane was just a guy that's just about playing. He wasn't about no show. Hendrix was a showman, but Hendrix could play the blues. Hendrix was a blues
And Dwayne and Eric had a lot of respect for each other.
Oh, yeah,
No?
unbelievable, man. If you ask Dwayne after they did Layla, you asked Dwayne who was the best guitar player, he said Eric Clapton. You asked Eric Clapton, he said Dwayne Allman.
Right.
That's the respect they have for each other. And he would always say, like, well, who, you know, you can tell that's me playing the Les Paul and that's him playing the Strat. That's what he'd always say, you know.
And sure enough, it was true.
That's right.
And another band that you were exceptionally close with and probably wouldn't have gotten signed was Jay Giles.
Oh, yeah, Jay Giles.
How did you first come across Jay Giles?
Yeah, I was with Dr. John up at the Boston Tea Party, and I heard them play "Serve the Right to Suffer." And I was backstage, and I heard, you know, oh man, just like John Lee Hooker, Wolf of Goofer had it down to the pot, and they had that slow boom, boom, serve the right to serve right to be alone, and that was the last song. And now they go off stage, and I would run out to see who was playing. And I thought it was some brothers, you know, some black dudes. So I run back in the dressing room. I say, hey, man, where the brothers that was on stage? And Wolf of Goofer said, that was us, man. I said, oh, yeah. and Wolf of Goofer did.
You know, but that actually brings up something interesting, Mario. And I think it's interesting, and I've talked to other people who think it's, like, fascinating. You're black, man.
Yep.
All these groups were white.
Right, that's right.
and you didn't even come from their kind of background.
But, you know,
how did that all work out? How did that happen?
All because of the blues, man. Because they were blues based, you know.
Right,
and these cats were, you know, they connoisseurs. They were connoisseurs of that American music, you know. And they really dug the blues. I mean, all the bands, like the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, all of them dug the blues. Jay Giles band, Allman Brothers. These cats made me appreciate the blues even more so. Because I was raised up on the blues and I loved it, but I would get bored after a while because it was so slow sometimes. But at the same time, I always loved it, you know. Muddy Waters to me today can't do no wrong. You know?
Really.
Muddy Waters, man, everything Muddy did. And Muddy, I mean, I introduced Magic Dick to Muddy from Jay Giles band. I remember Muddy would always say, man, you know, you always bring these bands. I said, well, they got some Dom Perignon. You know, if you bring a bottle of Dom Perignon. Muddy Waters said, yeah, well, I'll let him sit in. So I tell him, what is his name? He said, what's his name? I said, Magic Dick. He said, well, a name like that, he better be a Mama Jamma.
And then you also had Jay sit in with the Allman Brothers, didn't you? Yeah. That must have been a rush for him, man.
Oh yeah, but also, you know, Jay didn't want to, you know, he didn't want to do it. But I said, man, look, you can play. And Dwayne would always give him room to take a lead, you know, and so on. But and Jay would always say, man, I ain't gonna be in the league of these cats, you know. But Dwayne loved him, and Dickie loved him, you know. And I remember the last gig that I was with the Allman Brothers. They played Boston Commons, you know, outdoor gig, and it was like on an afternoon, and the next day I was telling him I was going to go back to New York to go to King Curtis' funeral, and Dwayne and I said, well, man, I want to go to the funeral, so he ended up going back with me. We went to the funeral, you know, at the I forget the church on the west side or somewhere, and you know, and Greg and Dwayne sit there, and Jesse Jackson gave the obituary. He said, man, that was a really nice funeral. I don't with a funeral like that, you don't mind dying. Now, he said that just to me.
Right.
You know, like, whew. And then about 2 weeks later, I think he passed away. I couldn't even go to the funeral. I was so messed up.
Is that right? So you didn't go to his funeral?
Didn't go. You know,
did you ever go to the grave? Did you ever go down there?
No, never went to the grave.
Never did. Never did.
No,
did you remain friendly though with Greg afterwards and the rest of the band?
Let me tell you, after Dwayne died, I went down to Macon and I met B.O. before he died, and B.O. was so depressed. B.O. told me, man, oh man, I don't know if I can do without Dwayne here. You know, I'm just saying that's what B.O. was saying, and B.O. was really highly depressed. Out of all the people in the band, he was hurt more than anybody. And then about a year later, he ended up dying.
Almost in the same place, almost the same way.
Spot. But I'm just saying, I had seen that. And all that stuff was like, you know, back then we were all young people, you know, and I had a motorcycle. I got rid of it immediately.
Yeah, wow.
But I'm just saying that stuff, you know, sticks with you for a long time.
Yeah. Another interesting story that you told me, and maybe we'll end with a little Led Zeppelin story, because I know you spent a lot of time with them, and I know you were particularly friendly with Bonzo.
Oh yeah, Bonzo,
and Bonzo was a tough guy to get friendly with.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm sure there were stories about that and reasons for that. Tell us a little bit about John.
Bonzo was by far, man, a beautiful person. All the way from the fast. He's just a guy who loved to have fun, but he preferred being at home with his kids and being on the road. I'm sure back then, you know, and on those first 2 tours, I think they were like getting a salary or something, you know, more so than being like part of the band. They probably came.
Well, it was really originally Jimmy Page's band,
that's
right?
what I'm saying, right? You know, but back then, whatever it was, but Bonzo was a hell of a drummer and preferred being, you know, like he used to tell me. I remember when his son was young, he told me, "Oh yeah, man, he's playing drums already about 2 or 3 years old." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "How did you teach him?" "No, man, he just picked it up on his own." And he was really proud of that, and he really missed that. And out of all the people, he was the worst guy to be on the road with because he really wants to show. If he wasn't playing, he was depressed, you know.
And because he was depressed, he drank a lot.
Yeah, he drank a lot, but I mean, like, he was a lot of fun either way.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. And of course, the stories are legendary, man.
Yeah, I mean, he treated maybe a lot of stories I heard about him. I never had that problem with him. You know, we were always having fun together. But I know he could be a mamma jammer. You know, but it was definitely, and I out of all the people in the band, I had more fun laughing with him and Robert than anybody else.
One of the stories that you told me about him that I really, as a drummer, meant a lot to me was the jazz piece.
Oh yeah, when he played the Drum Also Waltz, I was in
the Drum Also Waltzes, right?
Max Roach had a record called the Drum Also Waltzes, and we were in the room listening. And before he go on the show, I said, "Hey man, I'm playing this record." He said, "Who's that?" I said, "It's Max Roach." And it's all 6/8, 3/4, 6/8. And he listened and he said, "Play it again." And we listened to it, man, whole record. And he left and he said, I said, "Man, you in the jazz?" "Yeah, I like it." "Okay." And he goes to the show and they play the show and then they give it to Moby Dick and he does his solo. And he did that entire. He went into that 6/8 and 3/4, and he kept looking over at me laughing. And man, it blew me away, note for note, you know, and it's incredible. He still did it, the whole stuff, spinning the thing around, the whole thing, but he still kept that 6/8 and 3/4, and then he went back, and all that other stuff. Incredible, man, blew me away. And I said, "Man," and afterwards I said, "Man," he said, "Man, I told you I like Max Roach."
Well, on that note, I think we're going to end our little short Facebook thing. But here, listen, Mario and I are going to come to a town near you one day. You know,
Neil.
We're working on a little storytelling road trip. So make sure you go on my Facebook site and put your little magnet where you'd like to see us, and hopefully we'll be at a town near you real soon, and we'll take questions. So, from Florida with my buddy, the Big M,
the Rock Dog,
Neil Ratner, Rock Dog with the Big M. Have a great evening, and we'll see you real soon. Bye now.